Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. What will this week bring for President Trump after a monstrously successful week? Maybe one of his best weeks in his presidency with the amount of good news that came through. You know, to me, the situation with Iran, it feels like months ago. But that was literally 7 days ago, 7 days ago, when we had, you know, the bombing of Iran over the weekend and then the ceasefire and the success that we're seeing there. That was just a week ago. So President Trump continues to have success. He had what? The Supreme Court ruling. He got NATO to pay more of their fair share, each country paying a certain percentage, 5% of their GDP going to NATO. The big, beautiful bill over the weekend advances a Senate hurdle, getting it closer to the July 4th deadline that President Trump wants to have this thing on his desk. Still some issues there that what I would call my friends in the House, the hardliners, are going to have some issues. We'll go through some of those today. And then I look at the stock market. Holy macaroni. Stock market ended last week at record highs. This is what I expected from President Trump. This is what we're getting from President Trump. And again, I don't want him to take a victory lap because there's a lot more victories to come. We're not even at halftime. We're not even a few minutes into the first quarter, and we have this winning that is going on. So what would we say? I guess we're halfway through the first quarter. If you look at the 4 years of his term, we're halfway through the first quarter, and right now we are up big, which means you put the pedal to the metal and you do everything you can to start cooking with gas here in America and make sure we when I say light it on fire, I mean that in a good way, not a bad way. All right. So, folks, before we go through some of the big, beautiful bill, we're going to go through some of President Trump's interview with Maria Bartiromo, which is really fascinating. And I'm glad he goes to her because she asks great questions and you get great insight into President Trump and what he has been doing. Before we do that, though, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at Colonial Metals Group. We know that China is literally waging war on the U.S. dollar, right? They are dumping U.S. bonds, grabbing prime American farmland, rolling out its new digital currency. And so, look, I hate doom talk, but I don't know how else to do this when it comes to communist China. It is plotting a financial Pearl Harbor. So this could devastate your 401k, your IRA. Kiss it goodbye if China is successful. President Trump's a genius. He's letting retirement savers like you protect your life savings with gold 100% tax-free. That's right, 100% tax-free. How do you take advantage of this? Get with my friends over at Colonial Metals Group. Get this free gold guide. It will save you lots of money. And in the end, I would say it would make you lots of money. freegoldguide.com/Grant. That's freegoldguide.com/Grant. Get your free 2025 gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth with gold. You'll receive free, you could get up to $7,500 free in silver. That's freegoldguide.com/Grant or call 1-800-458-7356. That's 1-800-458-7356. All right, with that, folks, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, welcome, everybody. Here's the deal. We now have this big, beautiful bill that has advanced one stage in the United States Senate, okay? Now on a Monday morning, will we be able to get to this July 4th deadline that President Trump wants? I'm a little skeptical. There's a lot of things to be worked out. The Senate parliamentarian, which I warned you about last week, and we'll take some credit here on the podcast. We were one of the first to warn you about the Harry Reid appointment, the Senate parliamentarian, who is throwing a monkey wrench into President Trump's big, beautiful bill. So again, I think the two biggest provisions that she said could not be in the bill according to Senate rules when it comes to reconciliation and it being a tax bill is this idea that illegal aliens can still receive Medicaid, and they're still they cannot stop states from funding gender transition surgeries through Medicare, Medicaid. Now, What? I would say to Republicans, push back against them. Push back against the Senate parliamentarian. These are instrumental provisions, and they go a long way to the savings of the United States government. Paying for illegal alien health care is sinking not just Americans, but for the states that engage in it. Look at California. California went from having a budget surplus to a budget deficit, all because of paying for illegal alien health care. Yet Gavin Newsom doesn't want to tell you about that. I did see this SALT tax, state and local taxes, is still in the bill at a $40,000 cap. So you can deduct up to $40,000 of your state and local taxes from your total income. That would drop to $10,000 after 5 years. Will that be enough for red state Republicans to say, hey, we don't want to reward blue states with a high tax structure by letting them deduct these things? But I'll tell you what, I live in a red state, and the $10,000 cap doesn't even come close to covering my property taxes. I'm a firm believer. I'm one of the few very strong conservatives that believes I like this SALT tax. I like a lot of tax deductions. I don't care what state you're taking them in. I don't think people should be paying tons of money in taxes. And so I will fight always to pay less tax, even for Democrats. They may not be happy I'm fighting for them about it, but I will always fight for them about it because that is my principle. Pay the least amount of tax possible. Make sure the government offers up the least amount of tax possible. It's not our job to say, hey, I'm sorry you're a Republican living in California. You're screwed because your folks are idiots and they have high property taxes. No, give everybody the benefit of a small, limited government. Let the people of California and other liberal states learn their lesson, like New York, that their policies hurt the people. So I'm a big believer that the SALT tax should be raised to $40,000, and I would say don't even reduce it to $10,000 after 5 years. Now, here's one thing I'm not happy about. The debt ceiling gets raised from $4 to $5 trillion. President Trump says he needs this to open up the runway, so they're not going to have this fight at very important times, especially during our midterm elections, which, if you can believe it, is only, like a year away for some of the primaries. So, again, it seems like Washington is always in an election cycle. Quite frankly, that's some of the problems of Washington. I would have said to our founding fathers, I think the only mistake that they made, there might have been a couple of mistakes, the way they phrased things, right? But the real mistake they made was not instituting term limits for members of Congress, both the Senate and the House. I would offer up you need term limits. I also think the 2 years, the 2-year term for a member of Congress should be 4 years. And stagger Congress on the 4 years. You could still have an election every 2, okay? The reason I say 4 years is the moment you win your election, you're back campaigning again. So members of Congress are constantly campaigning. And then if you offered up term limits to them as well, they will at some point stop the campaign function and just return to the function of doing what's best for the people, not the lobbyists. So I'd love to see term limits for members of Congress, and I don't know if we could increase the term for members of Congress. And I know that goes against what a lot of people think. I also would love to see the maximum donation to a member of Congress eliminated. Now, you're probably saying, well, why would you want to see the maximum donation to a member of Congress eliminated? What are we, $2,600, $2,700 an individual? $5,200 or $5,400 for a couple? Here's the thing. If you're an incumbent in Washington, you get every lobbyist donating to your campaign. If you're running against that incumbent in a primary election as a Republican and we want to get real conservatives in, what if we have a good-natured billionaire who's a real conservative and wants to give that person $1, $2, $3 million to go take out a rhino? You can't do that. So what happens is the incumbent gets locked in because they limit the amount of donations that the challenger has access to, while the incumbent and the thousands of lobbyists will offer up thousands of dollars. The incumbent will also get most of the super PAC money as well. Very hard to get someone to go form a super PAC on your behalf, stay out of the campaign, not talk. where if a big time wealthy guy could write a check to somebody for $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, we would change Washington. And I know it's counterintuitive. You say you want to keep money out of politics, but money is speech. And there's no reason why rich people shouldn't be allowed to use their voice. And in many respects, I think most rich people would be on the side of Republicans. Not all, but most. And that would be a very big help. Here's something else that I like the idea of, because this goes to immigration. And I've said this is something that we need to be talking about for a long time, which is making the system easier for good people to come here. Make it easy for good folks to come to America instead of hard. So they actually want to lower the asylum claim fee from $1,000 to $100. I'm fine with this. If you want to claim asylum, pay a $100 fee, not a $1,000 fee. And if you want to come to America legally, I would also say lower that fee to come to America legally, but you have to go through a rigorous background check. And that rigorous background check should not take more than 2 weeks. I would love the process for good people to come to America to be sped up to the point where in under a month, you can get a yes or no whether you can come to America. That would eliminate the reason to sneak into the country. If it takes you 3-4 years and your family needs money right away, what are you going to do? You're going to sneak into the country. Now, it doesn't help us when it comes to criminals, which is why you have to secure the border, which is what President Trump is doing. But for good people, it speeds up the process. Now good people don't have to sneak into the country. We can fingerprint them. We can take biometrics of them. Look, I've got global entry. I've got TSA clear. They've got my biometrics everywhere. If I can get a TSA clear that can scan my eyeballs, why can't we do that to aliens coming into America legally? Now we would be able to track them and keep tabs on them. Lower the barrier to come here. Increase the background checks of who's coming here and speed up the entire process. That is a good thing. Here's another one. There's an AI moratorium, meaning that no state can regulate artificial intelligence underneath the federal government's regulations. This allows President Trump's AI plan to unleash America and get regulations out of the way. All of that, very, very, very good. I love all of it. So with this, good. Raising the debt ceiling, not so great. But again, there is a benefit to that. Now, let's think of what else happened this week. NATO spending. America doesn't have to foot the bill all the time. Now we're going to get 5% of GDP from NATO members, have to go to NATO, and we'll now get member states paying their fair share. We had border numbers come in. We had dropped in half the number of apprehensions this month to last on the border. 0 people being released into the country. 0. That's a far cry from the tens of thousands that were released into the country under Joe Biden. And again, I said stocks now at an absolute record high. That is great, great, great news. Now, if you don't know where stocks are going to go, you think they're going to come back down. What if I said we know that Bitcoin is one of the hottest investments there is, but those have wild swings, this cryptocurrency. So what if I told you you could invest in a combination of data centers, technology, and cryptocurrency to lock in up to 20% annualized interest on your money, and that interest paid out monthly? That's what the folks at Get20Now.com are doing. Get20Now.com, up to 20% income on your investment, 20% annualized interest rate on your investment paid out monthly. The technology they are using, I have gone and seen it myself. I've studied it. It's unbelievable what they're doing to cool these machines. Buying the electricity super cheap. Have data centers in the most perfect locations across the country that allow them to mine Bitcoin at a rate far cheaper and faster than anyone else can. I have made a sizable investment with the folks at Get20Now.com. I urge you, you want to protect some of your portfolio. I'm not telling you put everything into this, but I'm telling you start to diversify a little bit. They have lived up to their promises to me. They are worth a conversation, okay? Get20now.com. That's get20now.com, up to 20% annualized interest on your investment, paid out monthly. Get20now.com. Answer the phone when they call, and at worst, call them back when they leave a message, all right? Very popular opportunity with Stinchfield's Army, so please answer that phone call when my buddy Corey calls. All right. Let's go now to the big, beautiful week that was for President Trump. Well, Maria Bartiromo asked President Trump about this.
Mr. President, you were just coming off of one of the most consequential weeks anybody has ever seen, from striking Iran to going to NATO, to announcing 2 deals, and then this Supreme Court victory. Have you been able to digest what has occurred in the last 7 days?
Not really. It was pretty wild period of time. And I really think in 6 months, we've taken the country and turned it around. I was told by the King of Saudi Arabia, by the leader of Qatar and the leader of UAE, when we went over there, we brought back $5.1 trillion investment into the United States. They said, you know, you're presiding now over the hottest country in the world. And a year ago, we thought your country was dead. It could never come back. It was so incompetently run by a very bad president. And I said, you're right, this country is hot. And that was a couple of months ago. You know, now we're talking about what we've done recently. So the country is really going. The numbers are great. I watch you in the mornings, and you're giving those numbers, and they're really good. No inflation. We have a bad Fed chairman, but other than that, we have, great. It doesn't even matter. The numbers are so good, it doesn't matter that he keeps the rates artificially high. But it's been an amazing period of time.
I'm glad President Trump raised the issue of the interest rates. I'm a big believer. And again, this flies in the face of what a lot of my conservative friends believe, including my buddy Stephen Moore, one of President Trump's chief economic advisors. I believe that interest rates, you lower them, you actually spur the economy. I know when you lower interest rates, what happens for business owners. As a business owner myself, when I was running auto care business, when I had trucks, when the interest rates were low, guess what I could do? I could buy more trucks. And when I buy more trucks, I could offer more services to the main company that I was running trucks for. That was FedEx. But when I buy more trucks, then I can hire another truck driver. And this trickles down all the way. And that happens when you have low interest rates. Maybe I want to invest in something else, in my auto care business. I want to invest in equipment that can help make me more money, a tire alignment machine. Well, if interest rates are not low, it's going to be very expensive for me to buy one of those machines or take out a working capital loan so I can buy one of those machines. You lower interest rates, everything gets spurred. Now, think about this as well. When you lower the interest rate, now you're also lowering the rate at which the government borrows money. President Trump has talked about this. It's something like $600 billion a year we're spending on interest alone. You lower the interest rate, you start to save billions of dollars in interest rate for America that you're not paying. That's billions of dollars of savings that can now be either used someplace else or used to pay down our national debt, which is out of control. So this Fed chair, I believe he's a partisan hack. I believe that for whatever reason, he's a Trump hater. Now, I don't know why, because the country feels good right now. When you think about it, last numbers I checked, wages were up 0.4%. Inflation was down, virtually non-existent, as President Trump said. We talked about the stock market. Everything feels good. You lower interest rates, boom. You are going to take this country off like a rocket ship. Yet this Fed chair won't listen to President Trump. President Trump ought to put a little more strength behind his criticism of the Fed chair. He's pretty strong, I will say that. But we got to get him out. Ought to threaten to ask him for his resignation. There is some controversy of whether or not President Trump can actually fire the Fed chair. But he ought to ask for his resignation. And anybody who's a true American, if the president is asking you to serve or to step down, you do what the president asks you to do. All right, Iran was a huge deal. And again, it feels like months ago, the situation with Iran unfolded. President Trump's big victory, taking out Natanz and Fordo and that other nuclear facility, basically setting them back decades in their nuclear program. Maria Bartiromo asked President Trump about that.
Every single one of them hit their target.
How will you know if he tries to start things up again? Because Iran just said that they are halting cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog.
The last thing they're going to be doing right now, for a period of time at least, is nuclear. They've had it. They've been trying it for 25 years. The last thing they're going to do is nuclear. We had to hit them, though. They were close to getting a nuclear bomb, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and look, I've heard from people inside Iran that the regime in Iran has executed more Iranian civilians in the past 48 hours than the number of Iranians who died in the 12-day war. So, I mean, you've got a regime that's been building ballistic missiles, building or trying to build a nuclear weapon. Why should we think that they're actually going to give up on this?
Well, they might not give up, but they're going to give up on it while they're exhausted. They are exhausted. They took hits like nobody's ever taken. And frankly, Israel is tied. They wanted to, it was the perfect time. We went in, we destroyed their nuclear capability, and we stopped. It was a beautiful thing. And they couldn't have gone on much further. And Israel was that was a very intense 12 days, very, very intense.
Has any other country suggested to you recently, as a result of this, that they want to join the Abraham Accords?
Yes. So we have some really great countries in there right now, and I think we're going to start loading them up because Iran was the primary problem. I actually thought Iran would. I actually thought we had a period of time where I thought Iran would join the Abraham Accords along with everybody else. And frankly, they would have been better off than where they are right now.
And what about the Abraham Accords? Would Syria enter?
Well, I don't know. But, you know, I did take off the sanctions at the request of some of the other countries in the area that are friends of ours. I took off the sanctions on Syria to give them a chance at, you know, the sanctions are biting. They're very strong. And we have sanctions on Iran, too. And, you know, you take them off when I sort of gave the expression today, you get more sometimes with honey than you do with vinegar.
He can say that after he just dropped 30,000 pounds bunker busters on Iran and 75 Tomahawk missiles. Sometimes you get more with honey than you do with whatever the saying is, than vinegar, right? More with sugar than vinegar, whatever it is. He can say that now. What is interesting about the Abraham Accords, thought Iran would join it. What are the Abraham Accords? Basically, it's normalizing relations within the Middle East where you have countries that don't even talk to each other, that do not have normalized relations. It's bringing the entire region together. If Iran joined the Abraham Accords, President Trump doesn't win the Nobel Peace Prize, well, then obviously the situation is rigged. Well, he should have won it the last time. So, listen, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the system is most certainly rigged. She asked him, I believe, about the pilots. The pilots were heroes. Think about this. 17 hours there, 17 hours back in B-2 bombers, 2 people in each plane. I don't even know how you pee on the plane. Like, I'd love to do a deep dive on how you go 17 hours, how you go to the bathroom. I guess they've got a bathroom on board. I don't know, quite frankly.
Well, those pilots were so courageous, and, you know, you want to honor them. Are you going to do something for them?
Yes, they're going to come to the White House. But what you said is right. These people flew 36 hours in a small space, a big plane, but a small space that was mostly occupied by bombs. And they flew so brilliantly. And they hit a target the size of this circle. The little target, they say, half the size of a refrigerator door from 50,000 feet up in the air, going at a rapid speed because they're going very fast when they're over a pretty rough territory. And they hit it every single time. And then they knocked out 2 other sites.
That's amazing, right? 50,000 feet, hitting a target the size of a refrigerator door, half of a refrigerator door. All right, I raised the question, is there a bathroom on a B-2 bomber? There is, according to this. The B-2 Spirit stealth bomber has a toilet on board for its 2-person crew. It also includes amenities like a microwave and a place to sleep for a pilot to rest during long missions. These features are crucial for the comfort and functionality of the crew during long-duration flights the B-2 is designed for. I don't think it gets any longer than a 36-hour flight, right? That's I believe what the total was. God bless our men. God bless our boys and bombers, as Pete Hegseth says. Another clip from Maria Bartiromo.
They didn't move anything.
They didn't move anything.
You know what they moved themselves?
This is about, did they move uranium? There was some talk that they did. I think it was bogus talk.
I saw reports that there were 400 kilograms, 800 pounds that they moved, but I wonder if it's traceable. I mean, if they were to have moved,
they didn't move anything.
They didn't move anything.
You know what they moved themselves? They were all trying to live. They didn't move anything. They didn't think it was going to be actually doable what we did, and what we did was amazing. And we went. There were energy commissions that went there. Now, it's just thousands of tons of rock in that room right now. That room, the whole place was just destroyed. And the other two also. Now, Israel was able to do damage, but we did the final damage. And we have the greatest submarines in the world. We launched 30 rockets from submarines. Every single one of them hit their target.
Think about that. Between the submarines, land-based missiles being launched, the B-2 stealth bombers, you had over 150 aircraft involved in this mission. Fabulous. So, yes, a big win week for President Trump. NATO, everyone's paying their fair share. The big, beautiful bill overcoming one hurdle. You've got the Iran bombing campaign, which was just an absolute success. And then, of course, the border security. I want to talk some of that in a moment. I also want to talk about this very dangerous man, Mamdani, who is running for the mayor of New York. He won the Democrat nomination. He's a self-described Democrat socialist. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a party of Democrat socialism. It makes no sense. But today's world, most Democrats are socialists, if not all. We're going to talk about him. He said something very frightening over the weekend. And when I say frightening, I mean very frightening. So we're going to play you that in just a moment. But before we do, I was just at the gym. And I'll tell you what, I am stronger than I've ever been before, and I believe Energized Health is part of the reason. This is about getting hydrated at a cellular level. It is a scientific fact that Energized Health can get you hydrated at a cellular level. And once you do, you get joint pain goes away. You start burning fat at a record rate. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks on the Energized Health protocol. You start losing brain fog, and your head and mental clarity starts to clear up. You start building muscle mass. All of this is amazing. And even I've heard people say their asthma starts to go away. I mentioned joint pain going away, starts to cure certain things. Man, Energized Health has worked for so many people. But the main thing here, I would say this. If you want to lose weight and get your life back, you want to do it quickly and fairly easily, Energized Health can help you. They helped me. They changed my life. I wouldn't tell you this if I didn't go through it myself. EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. Go there and tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right, so just to finish up with President Trump and everything that's been going on over the weekend, the big victories. We did have a loss, so to speak, last Tuesday. That was when this so-called Democrat socialist, he's a communist. This guy is an America-hating communist. I'm talking about Mamdani, who is secured the Democrat nomination to be mayor of New York City. Now, he's still got to run against Eric Adams, who's running as an independent. Still got to run against Curtis Sliwa, who's running as a Republican. Either one of those two guys would be far better than Mamdani. I can't believe I'm saying Eric Adams is even a decent choice in the running, but certainly I would vote for Eric Adams over Mamdani. And if the polling ends up coming out, as I suspect it will, that Adams is far closer than Curtis Sliwa. And I like Curtis Sliwa. I think he'd make a great mayor. But if he's not close, Curtis Sliwa needs to step down and put his support behind Eric Adams and make sure Eric Adams wins the seat again. Now, President Trump basically gave a warning to the next mayor of New York.
I can tell you this, whoever's mayor of New York is going to have to behave themselves, or the federal government is coming down very tough on them financially.
All right, what about Eric Adams? He pardoned Eric Adams. So Eric Adams in President Trump's mind has already been taking care of himself, and in a good way, not taking care of himself in a stealing way or in a criminal way, but taking care of himself, meaning he's walking the line that he should be walking. Now, Mamdani, I don't know if the guy's corrupt or not corrupt. Here's what I do know: he wants city-owned grocery stores. This guy that owns Gristedes grocery chain, he owns WABC in New York, Katzmatidis. He says if Mamdani wins, he's going to close down every grocery store. And Gristedes is a huge chain in New York. It's what made him a billionaire. He says he's going to close down. Now, what do you think that will do for the people, city-run grocery stores? We've seen what happened in Moscow during the Soviet Union reign. We know what happens in China. We know what happens in North Korea. Bread lines are a real deal. So why are we concerned about Mamdani? Well, he went on MSNBC over the weekend and declared some very wild things.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires.
So he doesn't want billionaires because we have too much, quote, income inequality. Now, what he wants is everyone apparently to have equal income, which also means equal outcomes, which in the end means absolute mediocrity. So you want mediocrity for a nation, you do away with capitalism, you have income equality where everybody gets the same thing, the government gives you a job, you have no incentive to go make your life better and then ultimately help other people. Right? Because in America today, by the way, charities and charitable giving prop up a lot of the underclass. There will be no charitable giving if you have socialism in America. Charitable giving all but goes away. Nobody has any extra cash. You get your apartment. You get a stipend for food. You have your government job. How the government stays afloat, I have no idea. In fact, it doesn't. It loses all the time. Now, I would offer this up, and I mean this. I want success for everyone, and success for some people is different. But if you have $1 billion and I have $5 million, I may be a little jealous of you that you made $1 billion, but I applaud you. I would say, how did you do it? I'm going to try to learn from you. Now, I myself am not one. I don't want to. I don't need to become a billionaire. Okay, that's not my main focus. I know people that it is their main focus. They want to be a billionaire. I don't need to be a billionaire. I want to create some wealth for my family and I where I am financially independent and I don't need this podcast. I don't need Real America's Voice. That's ultimately where I want to get by the time I'm, 65, 70 years old. I want to be totally financially independent. I can do whatever I want to do. That takes a lot of money, by the way, but you don't need to be a billionaire. But I don't have any qualms with somebody being a billionaire. It doesn't matter how far ahead somebody is of you. It's only that we as a nation ought to be embracing capitalism to move people out of poverty into the middle class. If you have half the nation as billionaires and half the nation middle class, fine. As long as people can pay their bills, they're able to they got the money to fix their car. If their car breaks down, maybe they can take it a vacation once or twice a year, take their family out to dinner. That's the American dream. And that's the American dream that Mamdani doesn't understand. If you have socialism, that American dream goes down the tubes. You're not taking vacations anywhere. You don't have extra money laying around to buy nice things. Everybody is equal. Everybody is mediocre. Everybody's wearing the same thing. You basically have uniforms. It looks like communist China. Not what I'm looking for. Mamdani continued.
Questions. Let's talk about immigration, deportation. Are you committed to keeping New York as a sanctuary city?
Absolutely, because ultimately we've seen that this is a policy that has kept New Yorkers safe for decades. It's a policy that had previously been defended by Democrats and Republicans alike until the fear-mongering of this current mayor.
So, wait a second. Sanctuary city status has kept people safe? How are you going to look people in the eye in New York City and tell them they feel safer when crime is up in every category, when just perception alone tells you can't ride the subway 24 hours a day in some parts of the city, after the sun goes down in other parts of the city, and you're going to tell people that sanctuary city policies have kept people safe? No, it absolutely has not. Because sanctuary city policies isn't just about the illegal alien and trying to be, quote, kind to that person, as Democrats look at it. Sanctuary city policies are about taking a sanctuary safe haven for any criminal and not allowing the prosecution of that criminal, especially if they are illegal.
And it's a policy that we've seen ensures that New Yorkers can get out of the shadows and into the full life of the city that they belong to. And it's one that I will be proud to stand up for.
Well, you know, the border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is planning to deploy ICE agents to New York, worksite enforcement to essentially increase and enhance the number of ICE agents here. If that happens on your watch, how do you plan to handle it?
We have to stand up and fight back, and we haven't seen that from our current mayor, who has instead been working with the Trump administration to...
You know what's so sad? I say stand up and fight back, and I mean with our words, with our truth, with the Constitution. Maybe you use the courts in some respects. I use the power of the microphone and the mind to sway hearts and minds. When a Democrat today says we have to stand up and fight back, I actually question, do they mean violently? Do they mean rioting in the streets? Because this is the way of the Democrat. Is that what he means? I want to see if she follows up. When you say fight, what do you mean? Do you mean violence? Do you mean take to the streets and confront ICE agents in a violent manner, throwing bricks at them that we've seen in cities like Los Angeles and beyond? I hope not. But look, I'm trying to be intellectually honest here. Republicans use the term, we're going to stand up and fight all the time, and I know we don't mean violence. Okay? I know there are Democrats that say stand up and fight, and I know they don't mean violence. But when I hear a Democrat socialist, a communist stand up and say we're going to fight back, I'm worried about riots in the streets.
Assist in their goal of building the single largest deportation force in American history. I mean, we saw ICE agents arrest a migrant at Federal Plaza, and then we saw NYPD officers arresting a pastor who was peacefully observing that arrest. Those days are going to come to an end when I'm the mayor. The NYPD's job is to create public safety in the city, not to assist ICE agents in their mission to attack the very fabric of this city.
Guess what, pal? You will have no say whether ICE operates in your city or not. It's the federal government, okay? The federal government can come into your city. If someone has broken federal law, federal agents have the right to arrest those people in your city, whether you like it or not. Now, you can make it difficult for them, as New York has done. New York has been a sanctuary city. You got people like Alvin Bragg that refuses to cooperate. That, of course, is a district attorney who waged outrageous lawfare against President Trump. You have people like the Attorney General of New York. Mayor Eric Adams, in some respects, did operate it as a sanctuary city until he started to realize that it wasn't working. And then he changed his ways around, ultimately getting a pardon from President Trump. Well, President Trump talked about the border situation and rogue courts. That was a big win, by the way, the Supreme Court ruling.
Does everyone hear that?
Trump 2028. Do you intend
President Trump?
Hold on, we gotta play this. We gotta play this one more time, okay? Because what that guy just said was hilarious. That's a cameraman in the briefing room of the White House.
So much, President Trump. Illegal crossings in the border are zero now.
Zero. Does everyone hear that?
Trump 2028.
Do you intend, President Trump?
Who's that guy? I like him. He's working the cameras.
With this new
Trump 2028, the guy yelled. As the reporter said, hey, border crossings are now near zero. Zero. That is a win for America, whether Democrats want to believe it or not. It most certainly is. And I'll offer this up. For many of my moderate Republican friends that say, oh, well, we weren't prepared for ICE to go to workplaces and arrest people and separate families and take people. Well, what were you expecting? When you come here illegally, when you break the law, there are consequences for those laws. If I drive drunk with my kid in the car, the cop's going to arrest me. They're going to take my kid someplace else. They're going to separate the family. That's what happens when you're arrested. Now, they've been here for so long. They've been here for 10 years. So do you just turn a blind eye? And the reality is, if you turn a blind eye, the next group of people that come will say, well, if I stay 10 years, then they'll turn a blind eye for me too. And it never ends. So I'm sorry that people snuck into the country. I'm sorry that they led a basic law-abiding life after they broke it, sneaking into the country. But there are consequences for actions. And we can feel sorry for those people. And we could say, you know what, I have compassion for you. But in order to get America back on track, we have to do this. We have to get back to the basics of knowing who's here and having a real system of when you come to this country, you have to do it legally. And that only happens if you clean it out and you clean house. It's hard, yes. But it is what has to happen. And the only one responsible for them being captured and sent back is the illegal who came here in the first place. Do not blame the federal government or President Trump for simply enforcing the laws on the books. That's all they are doing. Now, you want to change the law? Have at it. And guess what? You did. You changed the law by making an end run around it, Democrats, Joe Biden and clowns. You changed the law by using loopholes and opening up this country, much to the demise of America. So you want to change the law, well, then you got to get elected again. The American people said, no, we don't want anyone changing the law anymore. Let's get back to the basics. All right, so President Trump continued here.
Reality, President Trump in the border. Do you intend to engage personally with leaders from South America, not only Central America, in order to tackle this situation in a regional way? And if you have a perspective of meeting some presidents from South America, as Brazil, for example.
Well, you see, as an example, not South America, but NATO over the weekend. They have great respect for our country now. They did things that nobody thought was possible. They took funding from 2% to 5%. Nobody thought they'd ever pay the 2%, and now they're paying the 5%. It's over $1 trillion more a year. Think of that, $1 trillion. Nobody thought that could happen. That's a different group of people, different countries. But we get along with a lot of countries. We are respected again.
Yes, we are. And that is due solely because of President Trump and his team. That the world respects us again. Somebody who doesn't respect us, though, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. I want to just explain to you and show you where the Democrats stand on illegal immigration.
You know, border crossings are at a record low. Do you give the Trump administration some credit for that? And are you, when you look at those figures, do you think things are moving in the right direction, at least in that regard, Senator?
No, I don't give them credit for that because border crossings are low because they're violating.
No, he doesn't give them credit. No. How do you not give him credit? I mean, what President Trump has done is nothing short of amazing. Amazing. And yet that shows you exactly who these Democrats are. No, they don't give him credit. He's the one guy who did it. Joe Biden had control for 4 years. We had an out-of-control border. 6 months later, the border's virtually shut down. Chris Murphy's a total freaking loser. Just for fun, though. How happy is the media? Maybe not that President Trump is in office, but they love when he takes questions.
By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead. You tell me when it gets boring. Okay?
It never gets boring with you, Mr. President. Never. Never gets boring at all. All right, folks, listen to me. I have an important announcement. My friends over at Patriot Mobile, Patriot Mobile, oh, that's not it. Here it is right here. Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com/Grant is where I want you to go. America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. I don't want you to worry about switching to a company, maybe you'd never heard of it. Maybe you're wondering, oh, well, geez, they don't have access to the cell towers. They're just a little company. No. Patriot Mobile accesses the big three networks, okay? You get to choose which network you want to be on. So you're not going to lose service, and you'll gain customer service because the customer service is all 100% U.S.-based, unlike the big three cell phone companies. Switching is so easy. It literally takes just minutes. These eSIM cards now, you can keep your phone, you can upgrade your phone, you can get a new phone, whatever you want to do, Patriot Mobile will make it happen for you. And by the way, folks, they're America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, which is why I love them. It's a parallel economy. They are really fighting for us, which is why when I pay my bill every month, I know that a portion of that money is going to help causes I believe in, and that's First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, Veterans Affairs, things like this that we all care very, very deeply about. So PatriotMobile.com/Grant. 972-PATRIOT is the number to call, 972-PATRIOT, and of course you tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right, one of the things that I like to do is run the body language segment on the podcast. The body language segment is my Friday evening segment on the Real America's Voice show, where we go through some of the viral clips and talk about body language with my body language expert, Greg Hartley. So I want to do that now, folks, because this week there was a lot to talk about. Time for our body language segment of the week. I want to focus in off the top of this moment. Remember this? There was a lot to be said about it. This is NATO Secretary General to President Trump.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language to
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
So he calls President Trump Daddy. Now, I know he's talking about on the playground and Daddy, but it was very funny. I want to bring in now the host of the behavior panel on YouTube, former military interrogator, he's body language and behavior expert, Greg Hartley. Greg, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Grant, always a pleasure.
All right, Greg, I'm going to give you dealer's choice. Do you want to do that clip I just played, or would you like to go to the next one where the reporter asks him about it?
Yeah, let's go to the next one, because that was just, let me say one thing about Trump. What makes him brilliant as a communicator is that he uses analogy and he gets to the common man where people can understand. I think he did a great job of that. So, yeah, let's go to the next clip. I think it'd be better.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is a reporter asks President Trump later about being called Daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
All right, so, Greg?
Well, there you go. His sense of humor again. He's up. He's laughing about it. He's making nothing of it. And I think it was an analogy extended is all it was when he said sometimes you have to say daddy, like you said. But he's smart enough and nimble enough to do this. When you hear Newsom saying that he's lost it, that's clear that he's not. Otherwise, he would have fallen for a bait question and fallen right into it. That's a good interrogator question. We ask you something where you don't have a way out, and then you make a mistake. He didn't. He didn't fall for that. He just turned it into something funny and kept moving.
You know, I love Rubio in the background laughing. We don't need to do body language on that. It's pretty clear what he's doing when she says daddy. All right, let's do another serious one, though. This is President Trump talking, I believe, about the strikes in Iran.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
All right, Gray, what do you make of that?
There's Trump again. Imagine that same speech without the "and a lot easier." That very New York thing he does where he's exaggerating and making the point, look, we can do this again and we can do it a lot easier next time, I think is very clear. Look, when we're doing body language and behavior, our body's intending to send a message or to hide that message. And mostly what we're looking for is using our body to send a clear message through voice tone, through diction, through cadence. And that's what he just did. He slowed down and changed the cadence of his speech, changed the pronunciation and the tone to send a clear message. That's body language. That's behavior.
All right. Next one, this was my pick because I want to see what you would think about it. Pete Hegseth basically calls out a former colleague of his, Jennifer Griffin, who's the Pentagon reporter for Fox News. Pete Hegseth, now the Secretary of Defense. I'll show you this interaction and then let you comment on it.
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president says. I'm familiar.
Report about the ventilation shafts on Saturday night. And in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
Both interesting, Greg.
So the first one I love, Hegseth is doing the browbeating. If I look down my nose at you this way under my glasses, that looks aggressive. And then if you pay attention, as she starts to speak, you see cynicism as his left brow rises, or his right brow rises. And then she gets fight or flight. You can see her getting a little wooden, a little rigid as she starts trying to make her point. And then she starts batoning to make her point to him. So I think this is a good example of him being under her skin and her realizing it. See her brow up as she's asking for approval in that question.
Is there anything to be made of her leaning back as she kind of makes her final point there?
Yeah, I think when a person's doing that, they're exposing all this. That's defiance. Anytime you see a person that's exposing all that openness, exposing their chin, you know it. If you're ever in a place and people start to fight, if you're in a bar, you'd see them do this, which is the stupidest thing a human could possibly do. But we do it to show defiance.
All right. This is an interesting one. So we go from that literally, Pete Hegseth, I'm not going to call it an attack, but he definitely, went right at her with that. We now have RFK Jr. This was during a hearing. He basically accuses one of the congressmen, Representative Pallone, of having a conflict of interest with Big Pharma, and he says it to his face. Watch this.
15 years ago, you and I met. You were at that time a champion for people who had suffered injuries from vaccines. You were very adamant about it. You were the leading member of Congress on that issue. Since then, you've accepted $2 million from pharmaceutical companies in contribution, more than any other member of this committee. And your enthusiasm for...
All right. What do you make of this?
This might be my favorite clip you've ever played in your entire show. And the reason is because he's clearly punctuating what he thinks and driving his points. His head, his face, all of that is driving the point. Even though his voice can't keep up with his thoughts, his body language is punctuating exactly what he's thinking, and he's very aggressive. He's batoning in a way, and his head is beating down too, making all of his points, even though his voice is behind it.
He was so calm through it and seemed so confident about it, which is what I think made it really hit home that, there was not even a shadow of a doubt that he was telling the truth about this.
That's right. Everything is aligned. Like I said, even though his voice is a clip or two behind what his hands and his body are saying, that's animated. That's aggression. That is, look, you did this.
All right, let's try to get in the reaction to the accusations. Now, I think Pallone didn't even hear the accusation. I think if this is what I remember from during the week, but anyway, let's roll. I
think you're right. Yeah.
My understanding now is that the secretary said something about me taking money from pharmaceuticals. Is that what he said?
That's why he's not fighting for
The secretary implied that Mr. Pallone would not fight for vaccine victims because he took money from the pharmaceutical industry.
Again,
he needs to take back those words.
Okay, here we go.
Taken down.
This, Mr. Secretary, this is a valid point of order, I'm told. So I'd ask you if you would please take back those words.
They're retracted.
Yeah, I really mean it. I really mean it. Nor would I. But the funny part is,
real quick if you can.
Yeah, you expect a guy to be irritated. You could tell he wasn't watching. But look at the body language of RFK. That lip compression is withheld opinion. He just retracts it because he has to. And then, yeah, I really mean it. That doesn't come across as being meaningful. And look at that disdain and that look in his face. I love it.
I will say my favorite was the beginning. Who, me? Who, me? Took money? What are you talking about? And he's not even looking at RFK Jr. He's looking at his fellow Democrat to give him approval.
Well, I love the
Greg
fact
Hartley.
she says he implied it. I don't think he implied it. I think he outright said it.
Yeah, he didn't imply anything, that's for sure. Greg Hartley, as always, thank you. I appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure. See you next week.
Absolutely. Don't forget to check out Greg's website, readbodylanguage.com, and, of course, the YouTube show, The Behavior Panel. All right, I love that segment. I really do. And Greg Hartley's a great guy. All right, listen to me. The Wellness Company. Do you have one of these prescription medication kits? 8 of the most important prescription medications you can have. We know that Iran is going to try to wage some kind of cyber attack against America. We know that China every day is waging a cyber attack. Drugstores, we've already seen it, have been shut down. If, God forbid, there's an emergency and you need prescription medications, you got to have one of these kits on hand in your house. So I would urge you, go to twc.health/grant, use the promo code GRANT to get one of those kits. And then don't forget about parasites. I think the Liver King is infected with parasites. I think that's why he went crazy, the social media guy. That's salmon at a grocery store with worms crawling around in it. I got sushi tonight. I don't even want to eat it. But I am on a parasite cleanse, sold out 3 times by the Wellness Company. 3 times sold out. What's in it? Ivermectin and mebendazole. This is known to kill parasites. Actually, there's some ideas that it's curing cancer now as well. But mebendazole and ivermectin, this concoction, just go to twc.health/grant. The doctor will get in touch with you. You get on one of these parasite cleanses and clear your body of them. Parasites can cause cancer, liver fatigue, brain fog, skin issues, you name it, they're disgusting. So a whole host of products, including the spike detox from the Wellness Company, to get that spike protein if you took the vax out of your system. twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. All right. You heard about this. This is my favorite. Alcatraz of the Everglades. That's what they're calling it anyway. It's the end of basically an abandoned runway strip in the middle of the Everglades. They're going to put a deportation center in. ICE and Department of Homeland Security working with the governor of Florida to make this happen. We're told it could happen within just days. This is Governor DeSantis.
We've got a massive runway right behind us where any of the federal assets that they want to fly these people back to their home country, they can do it one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. You got it all. You got the detention facility. You've got the airport. Can the federal government make good use of this?
We sure can. Talk about efficiency right then and there. But also I want to talk about the funding for this. Some of it will be paid by the state of Florida, but a lot of it will be paid by the federal government. We're actually looking at FEMA to fund this through the Shelter and Services Program, which we saw in the Biden administration. That funding was bastardized to use for places like the Roosevelt Hotel, which is the place that housed Tren de Aragua, was really the base of operations there, as well as Laken Riley's killer. So we're going to take that funding and actually house these illegal aliens before we get them out the door and out of our...
It's great. They're going to use DHS funding that was used to house the illegals, bringing them into the country. Now we can use it to deport them. Sounds good to me. And apparently this thing is going to be up and running very, very soon. Good for Governor DeSantis. Good for Department of Homeland Security, our Secretary Kristi Noem. And great for the folks running ICE, catching these people, getting them into that center and getting them flown on out of here. But do not forget, folks, the most important thing. 1 million people, more now, have self-deported themselves. Self-deportation. That is the way to go. Look, the numbers don't even come close to 1 million people of Tom Homan going and arresting these bad people. They're big numbers, but not close to 1 million. This self-deportation, we got to really capitalize on this. Put the hammer down when it comes to all of that. All right, folks. That is going to do it for us today. Don't forget my website, GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. Stinchfield 1776 on all of the social media platforms. If you're watching on any platform, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me, the channel, wherever it may be. This helps us amplify the voice and spread it. And it is very important, and all of you are very important, Stinchfield's Army, in spreading this voice, because this is how we keep our country as President Trump makes it great again. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I'm Grant Stinchfield. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tonight on the Real America's Voice show.